Hello, welcome to Beer and Theology. My name is Scott Stivers and this is part 2 of my first attempt at home brewing. I must admit, as I watched the last video, I felt a little silly. It was a lot like times I've recorded music and listened to myself singing. Anticipation is making me wait, keeping me waiting. It's slow good. Is that really me? So, for this video I'm going to try something a little bit different. I'm going to narrate over the footage that I took last fall and cut out most of my rambling commentary. Turns out I'm not the improvisational genius I thought I was. Adding 1 gallon of warm water to the... What's this thing called again? I left off last time returning the wort made up of steeped grains, dried malt extract, and malt syrup to the stove to boil. I failed to mention that the brew I was making is called Caribou Slobber. I'm pretty sure Northern Brewer is tipping their hat to Big Sky Brewing's Moose Drool. Both are brown ales with similar grains and the exact same hops, which is where we pick up the action. Once the wort came to a boil, a rolling boil, I set my smiley face kitchen timer for 60 minutes and added the first batch of Golding's hops. So in they go! Now these are hops pellets as opposed to actual hops. And a lot of brewers use these pellets. There they go. That's kind of scary. Now hops are the most versatile ingredient in beer, and Golding's taste like England. After 15 minutes, it was time to add the second variety of hops, Liberty. So now we add the Liberty hops. Now, Liberty is an American variety with a German heritage, and it has a clean flavor. I'm a little worried that World War II is brewing. With 15 minutes left, I added Willamette hops, a suspiciously French-sounding name, but not. All of the hops add aroma and flavors, and Willamette is peppery and fruity at the same time. Now I do have to admit, the subtleties of when to add hops and things like that, that's not something that I know yet, but I hope to soon. So anybody who wants to put a comment in the comment area below about how they hop, I would appreciate it. My smiley face timer went off and it was time to cool the wort. I had to let the wort cool because hot wort might kill my microscopic bits. I mean yeast. So 30 minutes in a sink full of ice. In the meantime, there was plenty of work to do decontaminating the rest of the equipment. We couldn't have any unwanted microscopic bits imparting their unorthodox flavor characteristics. Actually, there are beers that welcome wild yeast and bacteria. They're called lambics, and I'll do an episode on 1 or 2 of them in the future sometime. Anyway, once all the equipment was sterilized and the wort was cool, it was time to put everything in one of the carboys to ferment. I started with a gallon of cool water to help the wort dilute more evenly. Then, in went the wort. Ooh, there's goo! Oh my gosh, there's goo. I don't know whether or not I'm supposed to let that go in there or not. Finally, I topped it off with enough water to make 5 gallons altogether. Basically, I now had sugar water. The time had come to pitch, so I headed to the bullpen to warm up. Step back. And... okay. Oh, wait, it's not that kind of pitching. It was time to add the active ingredient, the yeast. Look at these little guys. Aw, they're cute. So we're going to put the yeast in. Sure, yeast can add flavor in some beers, but their main job is to eat sugar and fart alcohol and carbon dioxide. The more sugar for the yeast to eat, the more alcohol they leave behind. The amount of sugar in the diluted wort is known as gravity. So when you see a beer that is part of a high gravity series, it isn't because they were brewed at sea level. After I pitched the yeast, the instructions told me to firmly insert the carboy bung into the neck of the carboy, then insert the airlock into the hole of the carboy bung. I've led a sheltered life. I mean, I had no idea there was an appropriate real-world use for the word bunghole. I mean, how politically correct do you have to be to use the phrase, the hole of the carboy bung, instead of just the carboy bunghole? Of course, say that 3 times fast. I dare you. Carboy bunghole, carboy bunghole. Carboy bunghole, carboy bunghole. Carboy bunghole, carboy bunghole, carboy bunghole, carboy bunghole. Anywho, Petey.
Not sure I want to know what the implications of having a cat in the beer is going to be. Here we go, we're gonna put the airlock in the bunghole.
I didn't really think through how heavy the brew would be.
Oh my god! That's a lot of Caribou Slobber.
But it was time to move the fermenter down to a cool, dark spot so the yeast could do its work in peace. The yeast needed to party and feast for 2 weeks before I could bottle it.
See you in 2 weeks, Caribou Slobber.
So, there you have it. Beer was brewing. Next episode, I'll go through the process of bottling. I know there wasn't a whole lot of theology in this episode of Beer and Theology, but there were a lot of subjects that we could cover in future episodes. Just like Caribou Slobber is a tip of the hat to Moose Drool, some biblical writers tip their hats to other literature of the time. Or, what happens when you let wild ideas into theology the way lambics let wild yeast into the brew? Food for thought. Or maybe more like sugar for digesting. Thanks for joining me, and see you next time on Beer and Theology.